Okay, so what we're going to look at today is we're going to look at reflections, metal reflections, and we're going to try and recreate those in oil pastel. So what I have here is just some examples of various ways that we can achieve this. And what we're going to do, we're going to have a look at these spheres, and in particular we're going to look at the first one here, which is quite a dull diffused light, I would say, that is shining on here. So the reflection is quite, like I say, quite diffused. It's quite foggy. This here is obviously very, very shiny, as you can see. So that, as you can see, that's treated slightly differently. And this one here is sort of halfway between them both, but this is a copper pot, obviously. So just to show that that the different colours within that. But we're just going to look at this sphere here, and we're going to try and create a similar effect. This isn't done with oil pastels. Oil pastels will give a slightly more semi-abstract look, but nevertheless it'll be quite effective. So what we're going to do is cheat. So I'm just going to draw a circle with my masking tape, but feel free to draw a circle. That's possibly quite small, but it'll do for the purposes of the demonstration, really. So what I like to do, I like to use a white. This one's a bit dirty, so I'm just going to rub that off on the side here. This is only a test piece, so I'm not too worried about the fact that I'm making a little bit messy. If you were to keep this, I would suggest that you had a separate piece of pastel paper. Bearing in mind as well, something that I forgot to say, but the pastel paper does have two sides, one rougher side and one smoother side. I'm using the rougher side, but it's entirely up to you, because if you're doing the shiny version, then I would suggest that you use the smoother side potentially, but it really doesn't matter. It's just preference, and at this stage I don't think we need to worry too much about it. So I'm just blocking in some white here, not too much. So I'll just bring this over here. We're going to only use a couple of pastels today. We're going to use a black, a grey. We can obviously use the blending stick and the white. In the Craypa, this one here that we use in class, we have got we have one grey, but in other sets, then there might be a multitude of greys, ranging from a light grey to a dark grey, or a warm grey, cool grey, and so on and so forth. But we're going to try and do it just with this one colour today. So now I've got my highlights there, so I'm just going to create that top highlight there. So cordon it off as such, and there's a little highlight just by here I can see, so I'm going to cordon that off just so I don't go over it. And I'm just going to block this in slightly, because all this is darker now. You can see that, I think, yeah. You can't really see the white, but that's okay. You saw its application, so I'm sure you believe me when I say that I put white down there. Okay. Okay, so that's all I need. Now, the beauty with oil pastels is the fact that if you put a base layer down and then you put another colour over the top, then what will happen is you will have something to blend onto the actual binder that oil pastels are made with, some sort of oil. I'm not entirely sure what it is actually, but obviously once the two oils meet, then you can blend away. So you could in theory blend this just slightly, just so you've got something there. You can see that. Don't worry about going over the lines. We'll sort that later. And then we need to look for the darker values. So I can see a dark value just by here. Be very bit scant with the black. It is very domineering. Ideally, if you did have any grey pastels, then this is the time to bring them out, really. You just don't want to go in too hard with this. Not at first anyway. You will find that you will use it a little bit more than what we're using it today. Also, a little rule of thumb: if you need an edge, obviously you either snap the pastel, or you just go to the end, which is the top end of a pastel here. So and then you can use the edge as such. That's very useful. So just going to blend that in. And what you'll find is that when you're building this, so you're building this colour up, so you want ideally to you're creating really an oil painting with pastel. That's the idea. So you want it to become creamy. You want this creamy look to it. And that looks quite dark to me, so that's a bit of a concern, but not a massive concern. I can go over that. Just for the purposes of the video, I did forget to press record earlier, so hence why I'm doing it again. Normally there'll be a little bit more interaction from the group, as you're aware, but I did forget, so I do apologise. But we are in a lesson at the moment, and everybody's very quiet because everybody's drawing their they're very difficult. No, they're not all difficult, but there's a few reflections that people are doing here that could be deemed as difficult. But I think everybody's enjoying it because everybody's very quiet. So, as you know, that's a rarity around here. Okay, so I've blended that, and what I can do, I can go back with the grey, and I can go over that, so I think, oh, that's a little bit too dark. And now I'm really starting to feel the creaminess. I'm really starting to feel that binder, working with the binder at the bottom. So that's what's going to give me this diffused look, that nice graduation. Okay. So as this is a live video, there'll be no speeding up or anything like that. So you have to bear with me watching me do this, but I'll try and fill in the gaps with a little bit of chit chat. Okay. So it's getting into that stage now. So I'm just going to take some white to make sure my white's clean, because white has a terrible habit of picking stuff up, as you can imagine. And I'm going to take this out a little bit so that it gradiates into what I've already done. Now these pastels are really good, which I'm surprised about, because I've not used the craypa before, and well, I have obviously in class, but not in this sense where I need to pick out a lot of white. And I'm quite impressed, to be honest with you. I'm not saying that on a sales pitch, because I'm really impressed, because my pastels that I've been practicing with don't have the same properties. So all I'm doing here, I'm just pulling that white out a little bit to make that graduation. So now I can look and I can say, okay, well, I've definitely got a nice base of colour there. I need to knock this back a little bit down here. Take my grey. I can push this back with the grey. It looks a little bit more defined on the video, but not quite so much in what I can see. So as you can see, you can even go over black, so that's quite good if you do feel that you've made something a little bit too dark, or you can knock it back. So I'm just going to add a little bit. I can see a little bit of darkness here, so just touch my oil pastel, my black pastel here. I don't want too much. And there is just a slight amount going over here. You can see I can blend that in. Just a little touch there. I can blend that. Okay. So that's going together now, so we can see that oh, I just want to take this back a little bit because it's a bit too on the white side. So I'm just going to add a little bit of the grey. I think that's diffusing quite well on the top. So in order to, this is oil pastel after all. These aren't oil pastel. These are, I'm not entirely sure what they are, but they're definitely not oil pastel because oil pastel does have a distinct, oh great, look to it. I need to remove that. As you can see, the little mistakes you can actually knock back. So just in order to tidy up the edges, but also I do need a shadow here. So I'm just going to pop that in, like so. Obviously the shadow will be more defined the closer it is to the object, so we can take that up if we want to and blend that in too.
Just very focal. Okay. You're constantly doing this and you draw it there and then it's all done.
And then in order to tidy up around the edges, just find another colour. I mean, I'll choose this blue because it's quite nice. And you can add that around.
I found particularly this last year. Reading. If you're reading, spend it down, you know. But also for artwork. They distort the very vocals as they go out. Make it kind of shape slightly, so it's very difficult.
So then you can tidy up those edges.
Do it upside down.